Welcome to the Seriously podcast. I'm your host, Annaliese. Now let's get into it. Welcome to the Seriously podcast, where we make light of serious conversations with really interesting people. Booka Nile is many things: a mum, a musician, a mental health advocate, and an influencer to over 126,000 Instagram followers. But mainly she's someone to look up to, because after appearing on Married at First Sight in 2021 and being paired with Brett, the relationship didn't work out. But what Booka did next was amazing. She flew home to Perth and began a mental health business that helps others through music. She has also recently become a mum, and she made headlines because she co-parents with Luke, the father of her child, in a platonic relationship. Since the public have known Booka, she's done so much. So it was so great to catch up on everything in the Seriously studio. Here's our chat. This week on the pod, we have Booka Nile. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks so much for having me.
How are you today?
I am pretty good, a little bit tired because I've got a very cheeky 5-month-old who doesn't really like to sleep, but otherwise can't complain.
Oh, baby Wobbs, he's so cute. Speaking of your baby, you were on MAFS in 2021, but you've recently had a baby with Luke, who's actually your friend. Mm-hmm. And you made headlines recently all over Australia for co-parenting in a platonic relationship. How did that come to be? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So it was, well, quite a story. We weren't friends to begin with. We went on a few dates and I got knocked up basically. So it was an accidental pregnancy resulted from our couple of dates, and I flew off to Melbourne, and I was in Melbourne and I found out I was pregnant, contacted Luke, and it was obviously a big surprise for both of us. And then I got home and we went out to coffee and we sat down and we talked about the pregnancy and basically what the hell we were going to do. And by the end of the conversation, discussing, how it might look if, it all went ahead, the decision we kind of made together was, okay, let's just do this. He even said at one point, he's like, I don't want to get my hopes up in case you don't end up going ahead with this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we were chatting about it and we're like, okay, so this is a situation, obviously if we continue with the pregnancy, what's that going to look like? We don't really know each other that well. We've only, been on a handful of dates. How is this going to look, And we both realised that trying to force a relationship when we, just because I was pregnant just didn't really seem like a very smart thing to do, like only being with somebody because there's a baby in the mix. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, let's just focus on trying to be friends, getting to know each other, and let's aim for, whatever happens, but essentially we can co-parent and we can share this role, but basically work on building a really respectful sort of mutual trust-based relationship with one another. And that's exactly what we've done. So it's been a pretty crazy ride. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but I'm very proud of what we've managed to do together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. And I find you were in Mamma Mia recently, which is a massive media company in Australia. A book that was also interviewed by Channel 9 Entertainment.
9 Entertainment, yeah.
And a lot of people found a lot of interest in your story because it's very unique. But also I find it interesting how you weren't initially friends and then now you're friends now. How does that work? Is that hard can I just ask from a personal woman to woman, is it hard having feelings for someone and then, or is it just no, we're not? I don't see him like that anymore.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I guess we were still in that sort of we never really dated long enough to even learn whether there was going to be more feelings. It was in such early days. Yeah. And, I don't even know what either of us were looking for from one another, whether it was going to be something casual, whether it was just going to be, it was only one time that we hooked up. It was one time. So it wasn't an ongoing hookup situation. It was the one time. And I guess that's all it takes. But yeah, so we never really got to explore anything romantic beyond that one time. So when I was pregnant, I definitely felt like a rush of hormones quite early on. And I sort of said to Luke around the maybe 13-week mark, I was like, I think I need some space just, because this is so much to, so much pressure to try and like build this relationship like friendship basically as fast as we can before this baby comes. Can we just, hit pause on having, on like always chatting and stuff like that, just so I can get my head around it. And I ended up like taking months to get my head around it. And so we did keep in touch during that time, but we very much sort of did our own thing. And then around the 6-month mark, we started to hang out a lot more because obviously it was like, okay, we're getting close to this actually happening. But because 9 months is a really long time.
It is.
And I guess I just had a lot of growth to do myself. I started seeing a psychologist to talk about the whole situation, like prepare me for motherhood essentially. And I think I just needed that time to be, a bit of a hormonal, bitch. Can I say that?
Yes, that's me weekly anyway.
Because I really was,
It'd be hard.
I was, it was like the hormones are intense and, you go from like crying sometimes to being really angry to being like on top of the world. And it was a lot. It was like whiplash. So he was really good. He sort of just gave me all the space that I needed. And then, we sort of started hanging out a lot more around there, the 6-month mark, and then went from there. So there wasn't really, I guess, because we weren't hanging out that much before that point, we didn't really have the chance to explore, feelings or anything like that. And then, in those last 3 months, we got really, really close. And then when Wubbs was born, everything just got tipped on its head basically.
Yeah, as most couples do.
Yeah.
Like even when they're together. So
Exactly.
I couldn't imagine how hard it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's been challenging, but it's also been really rewarding. And we've got no guide. There's no one else that we can look at and go, oh, they did this too, and this is what they did, and that's how they made it work. We're just figuring it out as we go. It's, all new. It's all very, foreign. Becoming a new parent is in and of itself a completely new experience for somebody. So to be doing it with someone who you don't have that romantic foundation and that deep trust and those years of, knowing one another it's got a whole series of challenges of its own. But I feel like we've done really well in the 5 months that we have been, I guess, basically living together and co-parenting in building a really, really strong friendship and relationship with one another.
Thank you for sharing. And I feel like a lot of couples who may be going through the same thing can really look up to you guys. Now, I want to talk about Wubbs. So you garnered a following of over 126,000 followers on Instagram after you appeared on MAFS in 2021. And you show Wubbs, your baby boy, but you don't really mention his name or show his face that often. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and your decision in doing that?
Absolutely, yeah. So with showing his face, I started watching, I was like pregnant scrolling TikTok a lot, and I came across this account called Mum Uncharted, and she talks a lot about, I guess, like parents who monetize off using their children on Instagram or whatever platforms. Parents who even go so far as having, the subscription sort of function on their Instagrams, or who have made Instagrams for their children. And she goes through all the followers and the subscribers, and they're all guys. Like, it's creepy. And the comments on some of these kids' Instagrams are really quite disturbing. Like, oh, so beautiful, like what a pretty little girl and things like that. Anyway, I got real deep into a whole researching about this. I found out that in France, it's actually illegal to post pictures of your child on social media without their consent, because there's this move to, I guess, protect a child's or like a little kid's, agency or, an identity. And, before they actually are old enough to make the decision for themselves as to whether they want to be out there. I think at the end of the day, it's really the parent's choice, and I have no judgment to those people who do like to post their kids online. I think it comes from a very pure, innocent place. Like, you just want to, honestly, I know the feeling. Like, I want to just share him all everywhere because I love this little baby, and I'm like, when you're proud of something, you want to share. But I've had to just rein it in and go, okay, I want to make sure that I protect his online identity, I guess. I want to make sure that I minimize the chances of any creepiness. And that's such a sad thing that there is even the possibility of that kind of creepiness coming in from posting just innocent photographs of, you and your baby. But unfortunately, there is this whole yucky, dark world out there that I just don't want to even leave that up to chance. Chances are he probably would be absolutely fine. It probably never would go into a dark place, but I just don't want to take that chance. And also, for his sake, I don't want to, when he's older, for example, he might turn around and say, hey, I actually really didn't like how much I was shared online, or like, all my friends can find these pictures of me as a kid or whatever. Sometimes parents like to post really embarrassing things of their kids, like poo explosions or, their kids having tantrums or being really distressed or whatever. And those reels often get really popular, when people post funny things about their kids being misbehaving or whatever. And so I was like, I don't ever want to fall into that kind of trap of posting him for entertainment, because he's just a little baby. He sort of, it's my job to protect him, I guess. So it might be a little bit extreme, especially because like babies' faces change so much by the time they, become a child or even an adolescent. But I just think he can't make the decision. He's too little. So I just need to leave him sort of off my Instagram as far as his face goes anyway. I'll post him with me, but it'll be his back facing the camera, or there's been a few times I've just put an emoji over his face just until he's old enough to go, yeah, I'm happy for 126,000 people to see me. But, I guess, I've got friends who don't even want to be on my Instagram because they're like, oh, no, I'm self-conscious about the idea of that many people seeing me. And so I'm like, well, he's a little baby. He doesn't get the choice, so I'm just going to not do it. Mm-hmm. And as far as his name, that wasn't so much a conscious decision. I guess I call him Wubs, like that's just his nickname now.
Mm-hmm. Is that from Wubsy Wubsy Wow Wow?
No, it started
because that's a good show.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's a cartoon for kids.
Oh,
okay. I thought it was derived from
that.
No,
it started off, I was like just playing with him and I was like, bubby, 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 wubby, 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 bubby. And it just, I don't know, it's like nickname evolution in babies is so funny. Like he's now Wubs, Wobulus Wubbington. Like
Sir Wubbington.
Yeah, I'm like Wobulus Wubbington of the Wubbington estate and fortune. Like why? I don't know how it happens. You just get silly and crazy when you're sleep deprived and in love with a baby, I think. So yeah, that's sort of how it came to be. And I never call him by his actual name now.
Oh, really?
Never. He's going to grow up thinking his name's Wubs, I bet.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
I want to talk about relationships because we just spoke. You obviously spend a lot of time with Luke. Does that make it hard to date, or have you looked at dating yet, or not really?
I guess I've thought about dating only in so far as like wondering when I'm ever going to be ready, because like at the moment it's hard to do anything really past the 7 p.m. for me, because Wubs is very reliant on me during the night time. He wakes frequently. He wants to breastfeed. I feel like it would really stuff him around to not be there, and for him to have someone else doing that. He's so used to it always being me. To just stop would be quite hard for him. So I'm like, okay, well, if I was ever going to date, like now it'd have to be like a lunchtime thing, and then it's still kind of like, well, how far can that ever really go? I don't feel like I've got the space in my life right this moment to date, but in the future, obviously, when I feel ready, I'll know. So yeah, it will be hard though, I think. Like Luke and I have a very close relationship. He basically lives in my house and he's going to be moving in for a while to my house soon. And for both of us, I think if we were to meet new people, that's going to be a lot for those people to have to accept about our life, you know. Like some people feel jealous about exes and baby mamas or daddies and stuff. And they're right there and we see each other all. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, we're very, like, we talk every day. Like when he's at work, you know, we're chatting all day, sending pictures of wubs and, you know, we share more than just wubs too. We talk about our lives, our goals, things that aren't related to our child as well. So we've got this friendship which extends much beyond just him because we've built that over time, I guess. It would obviously get very boring if it was just always about wubs. And we get along really well. So, yeah, I feel like that, like I can imagine meeting a guy and it's like they're that close to their baby mama. It will probably be challenging, but I guess we're just going to have to roll with the punches. The right person for both of us will be someone who can understand, I think.
Exactly. Speaking of dating, relationships, we all know you from Married at First Sight 2021. That's when you first came on the scene. You made national headlines. You were paired with Brett. Can you take me back to that time in your life? Because you've done so much since then. You know, it's only been a few years. How was that experience for you and why did you apply?
Oh, that was such I liken that experience to a fever dream. Like, you know, fever dreams can be really entertaining, but they're absolutely cooked. You're like, what was that? But
what is a fever dream? Sorry.
A fever dream is is the dreams that you have when you've got a fever and you're kind of like in and out of sleep and it's like you're having these crazy dreams. You're like, what is my brain doing right now? That's a fever dream. So for me, that's what MAFS felt like. I was like, this is surreal. This is bizarre. Like, I can't even get my head around what's happening. I applied because I was on tour with my band in Europe when COVID hit. COVID hits and all of a sudden tour is cancelled. We're getting sent home on the first flights we can possibly get. The world is like shutting down around us and we're terrified. I get back, I'm put straight into quarantine for 2 weeks and I'm sitting there and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? Did life just end? Is the world going to end? And anyway, day like 11 maybe of quarantine, I am depressed. I'm like, oh my God, I have not seen a single soul for 11 days. I don't know what the hell just happened to life. It was a pretty scary time, as we can all remember. And I'm scrolling on Facebook, bored out of my mind as well, and I saw someone on my Facebook post about applying for MAFS. And I was like, oh, MAFS, I've heard of that. I'd never watched it, but I was like, I've heard of this. That's where they match you when you get married. And anyway, I was like, oh, I'll just have a look and see what this application's all about. I ended up filling it out. And then they contacted me the next day and I was like, oh. And then I started to think about it and I'm like, well, the world's shut down. I'm banned from Tinder. How else am I going to meet anybody? Maybe it's just crazy enough to work. And if it doesn't work, at least it'll be a new adventure. So that was basically how I ended up on there.
And what was your relationship with Brett like? Because I actually watched that season and me and my family loved you guys together, but I know reality TV is not reality.
Yeah, that's right. And at the start, we hit it off so well. Like what you saw, I guess, in our wedding where we were just getting along so well and there was a lot of chemistry was absolutely authentic. We really did. In fact, the producers were like, oh my God, we've found like our golden couple basically.
You were the golden couple.
Yeah, like and I was just blown away. I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe they've got this so right. This is so awesome. But then you're obviously put into a situation where you're living with them straight away. And that comes with challenges. That's the whole point, I guess. But I just sort of started to discover things where we were not compatible. You know, even just, I think it came down to values. Our values were different. And I think if your values are different from your partner's, then that's a really important thing that I think you have to have, you know, the same with someone because you can have different interests, you can have different hobbies. But if you guys value, like your core values are different, I don't think that can ever really work. If you've got one person who strongly feels a way that completely goes against what you feel is right in the world, that is going to cause a lot of issues, I think. So that's where we fell down, I think. And then we started to bicker a lot because he would say comments that I found offensive, and he was like, you need to stop being so sensitive, basically.
You're like, don't say that to a woman.
Yeah. He was
We've
like,
been told that forever.
He's like, you're being too intense. And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to express to you that this is like a problematic thing that's upsetting me when you say it. And it just went round and round and round until eventually it kind of imploded. And so that was what happened there. On the surface, brilliant, like really funny guy, like we got along so well. But then on those deeper issues and those deeper levels, we just didn't quite fit.
Okay, interesting. So coming out of the reality TV machine, there's a lot of ups and downs. I've only done 2 little shows, so I don't know the emphasis or the impact that it would have on one's life. But going from a regular civilian to overnight famous, what was that like?
It was crazy. Like, I mean, I'd had a little bit of publicity, I guess, from my music days, but in a very, very niche circle of people, like very niche. Like you'd get people coming up to you getting photographs, you know, at shows, but you could easily walk down the street and no one would know who you were. And then all of a sudden you go on MAFS and people are staring at you as you walk down the street. You're getting people coming up to you in Coles when you're doing your grocery shopping, asking for pictures. MAFS is another world. Like it is it's a bit larger than life, really. And the year that follows is, I don't think anyone could have prepared me for how big it was. When I went on MAFS, I'd never seen it. And so I didn't know.
Oh, really?
I didn't know anything about how big it was. I started to watch some of season 6 and 7 when I was in the hotel waiting to get married, like, you know, like in the week that I was in the hotel in Sydney. So I had no idea what I was in for. We went to the kind of like a little orientation day. All the girls after the hens night go and they meet up with the producers and they run through things with you and sort of just spell out the ground rules, really. And I remember Tara saying, this is the biggest show in the country. And I was like, what?
Oh, really?
Like, I had no idea what I was in for at all.
And that's the head producer.
Yeah, so she was the big dog. I think she's been promoted to an even bigger dog now, but she was like the big boss. And she was like, basically just said, this is the biggest show in the country. And I was like, because I'd never watched it. I didn't know about the MAFS mania that sort of follows the show and the massive platforms that people get. I had no idea of any of that. And then by the time it was all over, I was like, this is larger than life. This is crazy.
So you didn't do it for fame?
I didn't. No, I did it because I was like, maybe it's crazy enough to work. The whole, why not just go for it? What's the worst that could happen? Of course, I didn't know that like the worst that could happen is you get a villain edit and you end up, you know, getting a lot of abuse. So I had no idea about that or anything like that. And also I was someone who liked to say yes to challenges and new experiences. So I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is something that doesn't get offered to everyone. Maybe I'll just go for it. But really during the interview process and everything like that, I wasn't giving it a lot of thought. You know, they were like, oh, we'd like to chat again. I was like, yeah, no worries. It wasn't like a sort of, oh God, I hope I get this. I was very blasé about it. I'd forget about it sometimes because they'd go like a month or 2 sometimes before they'd contact you again to ask to chat again. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm like chatting to these guys. It was not in the forefront of my mind at all. So definitely didn't do it for fame, just didn't really know what I was getting into. Boy, was I surprised.
Wow. And you just spoke about trolling. What is that like on a bigger level? I've had it on a very small level on social media, but what is it like being overnight famous and getting trolled?
It's pretty rank, to be honest. And it was also really gross watching my co-stars on the show getting really trolled as well.
Yes.
I didn't get it too badly, but it was still like just made me see a really ugly side of humanity, a side where I was like, wow, these people become so invested in a TV show, a highly edited TV show, that's to the point where they're like, I'm going to find this person. I'm going to track them down online. I'm going to find their platform so that I can contact them and tell them that they suck and tell them all of the things about themselves that I think suck because I'm that angry and worked up over watching that show that I'm gonna let them know. I'm gonna give a piece of my mind. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah,
like
delusional.
get a hobby, like
absolutely
go
delusional.
and like take up knitting or something, like go for a walk on the beach, take a drink, like have a drink of water, do some deep breaths, because to be that worked up that you actually have to go through the effort of finding someone online, typing out a message and then sending it to them is kind of creepy and weird, but a lot of people do it. So it was quite shocking to see how many people were that heavily invested and who got that offended by the strangest things. Like I did the Brett song and so I got very trouble.
I remember
for that.
That was actually iconic. I liked the Brett song.
That was
That was like a fun song.
It was ridiculous. And some people were like, she needs to be locked away, throw away the key. She is a psychopath. And I'm like, what? Like, it was a bit of a laugh, like settle down. So people are just really quick to judge and really quick to let you know about their judgment too. It's not a nice feeling, but I always used to tell myself this says a lot more about this person than it does about me.
I see things that I don't like, but I will never comment. Like it's another level to comment.
Why would you comment? That's
It's
the
just
thing.
weird.
It's like, you know what? I feel the need to hurt that person. I want them to hurt. So I'm going to go out of my way to try and hurt them. Like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay if you're doing that to people? Like, who goes online goes, that stranger there, I want to cause them pain.
And
like,
it's always fake accounts. That's the thing.
And that's even weirder. It's like you've gone through the effort to not just troll, but to make a different account to do it off because do you get a dopamine rush from like being
So weird.
nasty to people you've never met on the internet? Like check yourself for just 1 second and go, wait, is this maybe a bit of a pathological weird habit that I've got where I get a small little rush off abusing strangers online?
Speaking of being okay, mental health. So you are a mental health worker and advocate. How did you get into that? And you're also the owner of Sonic Minds, your business who helps adults with their mental health, and you do it through music.
Yeah, that's
How did you get into it? Like that's so interesting. Did you do it like through like, did you have a bad episode of mental health and you thought I want to help, or like how does it come to be?
I guess like growing up, I was a pretty turbulent teenager. I still don't really know why, but I was rebellious. I was, like drawn to the angsty musicians, like the grunge era, like Nirvana. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm so tortured. I don't even know. But I was like a pretty turbulent teenager. When I came out of that turbulent state, like I dropped out of high school, everything like that, I was really just like off the rails. And then I kind of just came good around the age of about 19. I sort of got all that out of my system. I knew a lot of people struggling with mental illness while I was going through that because I was hanging out with other really turbulent people. And when I sort of, I guess, started to feel better, I was like, okay, I want more from my life. So I did the STAT test and I went to university and I studied psychology because I wanted to understand about the people that I'd surrounded myself with, but also myself and what on earth was going on for myself when I was a teenager. I was just interested by human behaviour and through that obviously learned a lot about mental illness and I started to work during that time, maybe my second year of university, started to work in a small psychiatric hostel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was working with people with extremely complex mental illness, so persistent, treatment-resistant schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, all sorts of, people with multiple illnesses who were too unwell to live in the community without constant care and supervision. So I was working there for a long time, like almost 10 years I ended up working there. I ended up managing the facility as well by the end of my degree. And it was amazing. I love that job. During that time, I was offered to join this band. So I stopped managing their facility, ended up just dropping down to casual, would go off on tours and then I'd come back home and I would work there still as a casual. And I was like, music's awesome. I really love music. It does so much for my mental health. I wonder maybe it would start to benefit the people here. So I started to bring in some music equipment, like some just basic recording stuff and doing some music stuff with some of the clients at the hostel. And some of them really took to it. Some of them really liked it. And I was like, this is super cool. I love this. So that was just the extent of it. Fast forward to, I guess, now, and that that experience, I guess, gave me the idea to start doing that as a business, because I realized that music could be something that really engages people. I think one of the biggest things that I find with people living with chronic mental illness is their self-perception changes after they're in the system. So they end up in, psychiatric facilities, hospital, etc., for so long that they start to see themselves as just a mental health patient. They're like, I am a schizophrenic. And that's how they define themselves. They define themselves as an unwell person. And the idea behind, I guess, Sonic Minds is to go, you're more than actually your diagnosis. You're a person who can do other things too. You can make music. You can define yourself as more than your diagnosis. Your diagnosis is a part of who you are, but it doesn't have to define your entire being. So that's the whole concept behind it. But then also music is just, having a creative outlet is amazing. It's really important to be able to have an outlet of some sort. Sometimes people don't want to do talk therapy, but they could write amazing lyrics and communicate what's going on for them through song. You can even communicate in a way through the actual music that you're writing. So like the tempo, or like how harshly you're singing it. You can express anger or you can express sorrow depending on like the style of music that you're writing. So it's more than just words, I guess. So it just opens up a whole range of ways to communicate what's going on for you and to also process. If you think about it, if you've gone through something really hard in your life but you don't like to think about it, but then you decide to write lyrics about it, you're having to think pretty hard about what you want to say to then, I guess, translate it into a poetic form. So if you're like, okay, I had a really horrible relationship with my mother, for example. I don't, but if that was something that someone was experiencing, to then face that and go, okay, I have this feeling. How do I now communicate that? And having to then translate it into poetry, I guess, it makes you think deeply about what you've experienced. Because I guess translating anything into any other type of language, whether it's poetry or a different language, makes you really have to understand what you're trying to say. If that makes sense. So,
It does. I love that. And music therapy is a thing. Like people don't know that. And you can actually study it.
Yeah.
Like it's actually
I was
a
going
degree.
to, and then I got pregnant.
So was I.
Really?
Wow. Because I was saying to Booka before, guys, like I was a muso for like 10 years of my life. Guitar, singing, choir, everything, bands. And I wanted to study music therapy, and I'm so happy that you're actually doing that because you're actually helping so many people through that craft.
It's amazing. Like I think music therapy is such an untapped resource.
It is, yep.
And it's not for everyone, but the people who do engage with it, I've had service providers be like, we've never been able to get this person that's coming to you to engage in anything. This is the first thing in 10 years that they're actually wanting to go to every week, because they get to come and they get to choose how the sessions go. They get to write whatever music they want to write. And it doesn't matter if they've got no musical ability, because we cater to every single level of skill. So if you can't sing or you can't do anything, you can still hum a melody and we can make that melody for you. And then we can help them write lyrics. And so it doesn't matter if you're not a musician, everyone can make music. And I think that's why.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I think, but then, another person might come and they're like, this is not for me. I don't really like, creating music. So, but for the people who do like it, it seems to be extremely effective and extremely engaging, which is fantastic.
Well, speaking on business, so right now, work and life now, what are you doing for work now if you are working, and how are you balancing those, being a mother and working?
Well, I guess I sort of have been in the background running Sonic Minds.
Yes.
Believe it or not, Luke is actually covering my clients for me while I've been on maternity leave, because turns out he also has a psychology degree and he is a musician. So, you
guys are, you have a lot in common.
We do.
They're both very attractive, so
Stop.
It helps.
So, he's basically, especially in those early days with WUBS, when he just was a little booby monster and everything like that, I just wanted to be home all the time because I was just, mum things. So Luke was covering my clients for me. And then I've now just taken back one of them. So I'm just doing like an hour a week with her, slowly type deal, I guess. And then I've sort of run all the invoicing and management from home. That's quite easy to do.
Yeah.
And it's quite streamlined at the moment. So, every now and then I have to speak to case managers or something, but ultimately it's just, invoicing and, that basic stuff, doing up service agreements, et cetera. So that's been easy to do from home. Now I'm obviously doing one face-to-face session a week now that I'm 5 months postpartum, which I'm really enjoying. I'm just I sort of went back to doing that about 2 weeks ago. So that's pretty fresh.
Cool.
And then I also, I work for a company called Anglicare and
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I do some post-suicide work with them, basically.
Wow.
So that's like after someone has lost someone they love to suicide, we go out and we support that person. So I just every now and then,
God, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really really important work. I'm really glad that this program exists because those people really do need support following something so tragic like that. So I do that every now and then. It's not very regular. It's just sort of on a very casual basis. I've done one shift since having WUBs. And then randomly also just do influencer stuff as well. So it's a real mixed bag of work at the moment.
That's so good. You're making such a difference as well. Like, I didn't even know that service existed. That's so good.
It's very new.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really new program. It exists over East, but it's only just sort of started to run in WA. So I'm really glad it's over here.
Well done. That's so amazing. I want to ask a few more questions. What are your personal goals for the next few years? Like what personally that you want for yourself?
I guess over time I would love to, obviously, becoming the best mum that I can be is a huge thing. It's a constant learning strategy. One of my goals is to sleep through the night. Haven't done that in 5 months.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's brutal, but it is what it is. It just comes with it, doesn't it? I think that I'd slowly like to increase work, but not to the detriment of WUBs. So like between me and Luke, if we can work out, a schedule so that he's always with one of us, whilst I'm still able to slightly increase some of my time working, that would be great. I would love to, I guess keep growing Sonic Minds as much as I can. And then personal goals, I guess, is I put on 30 kilos when I was pregnant and I ate a lot of Weet-Bix.
Did you?
Constantly eating Weet-Bix. It was weird. I've not eaten Weet-Bix since I gave birth.
That's an interesting craving, very Australian.
So Aussie,
Very on
Honestly, looking back, I'm like, what was that? That was crazy. Yeah. So I was eating just like a crazy amount. So obviously I've just been slowly working on, I guess, getting healthier again since being pregnant, getting, taking a bit more control of my body back because you basically surrender your body to this little being who's, living inside you. And then if you're breastfeeding, they're kind of control of your body as well. So it's kind of a bit of like body autonomy for me that I feel like I'm regaining in going through my weight loss journey and things like that. So, just trying to be more active and eat really well and be conscious of how I'm treating my body. That's something that I've been working on and I'm wanting to continue to work on, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You look great, by the way.
Oh,
no, I'm serious. You're actually glowing. And I just wanted to say this from a personal point of view. I remember seeing you at actually Beck Zemick's baby shower a few years ago. And compared to now, you look so much, I don't know the difference, but like you look so much happier, glowier.
Oh, thank you.
Like you look, I don't know, you just look content.
I was definitely not like in the best place back then, I think. Like I wasn't taking care of myself. I was going out all the time. It just wasn't a great time, I think. I'd been going through some tumultuous relationship stuff with friendships and things like that, and it was really, really impacting me. So I think that now I feel very healed from that. I've sort of was seeing a psychologist for a while, which I think is just so important. Even if you're really well, I think seeing a psychologist is so great because it just helps you to navigate life and to really reflect on who you are and who you want to be in the world. And I think that really helped me a lot. And then Wubs coming along, I guess, put everything into perspective, like, you know, really made me recognize what is important in my life and what isn't. And so I think that's been really good. And because of that, like, I feel like I treat myself much more kindly. I eat well. I obviously don't sleep, but I'm doing all the other things that are, you know, I guess help to make somebody be a well person, as opposed to just, you know, living haphazardly, not really caring about, you know, what you're doing or how you're treating your body and things like that.
No, I just wanted to tell you that because
thank you.
there's just such a difference.
And that's really nice.
I don't want to come across rude either, but I'm just being honest. Like, I just feel like you look so beautiful. And like I was saying to T before, you look like you remind me of Mother Nature.
Oh my God, that's so
like you're
sweet.
such a beautiful, like, I don't know, such a beautiful aura.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to tell you that. Last question. So if you could give anyone any advice to leave a note on this podcast, what would it be?
Oh, I think the best advice I could ever give. So wait, advice as my like last words on the podcast, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Is that even if you're going through the roughest time of your life, time will help you heal from that. Things won't stay the same. If you're in a really bad spot, things cannot stay that bad forever. You will just get to a point where things start to feel and look better for you. And it is possible to recover from mental illness. And when I say recover, it doesn't necessarily mean absence of all symptoms forever. It just means that you can learn to live in harmony with your mental illness if you have a prolonged one. You can learn to live a really happy and fulfilled life. You just have to, I guess, trust in the process, work on yourself, and try and be really kind to yourself.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Thanks.
Booka, thank you so much for coming on Seriously.
Thank you so much for having me. Seriously.
I love the pun. Well, thanks, guys, for this week. It's been an amazing interview. Booka was amazing, and I'll catch you next week for another interview. See you next week. Bye.